Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Williamson from cgcookie.com, and today I'm going to show you how to create a custom menu in Python. This will allow us to better adapt Blender to our own workflow needs, allowing us to create a custom menu just like any other menu within Blender, but that we can then populate the menu with whatever we wish. For this tutorial, I do recommend that you have a little bit of Python experience, although it's not necessary. You can definitely just kind of watch what I'm doing and then adapt it. If you have a little Python experience, it will definitely help you kind of better understand what we're doing. But that being said, everything that we are going to be writing in this tutorial is very, very simple. I'm going to be writing it from scratch, so you'll see every step of the way. And so even if you have never written anything in Python, you should be able to follow along. So to get started, let's first start by just adding in a new script file. Notice that I have a text editor here on the left side. I've got my 3D view just so I can test my menu. And then I have the Python console down here at the bottom. So I will start by creating a new file, and let's just go ahead and name this, and we will name this custom-menu.py for Python. Cool, very, very complicated. The first thing that we need to do is we need to access Blender's Python API. This will allow us to call the actual Blender commands within Python that we need to access for creating our menus, calling tools, etc. So let's first type in import BPY, so import Blender Python. And next we need to create a class. The class is what's actually going to contain everything within our menu. It's going to tell Blender how to draw the menu within OpenGL, and it's what we're then going to call later on once we've actually written the entire thing in order to display the window in the 3D view. So we'll type in class space the name of the menu, and to adhere to naming conventions and whatnot, we will use camel case. So this will be, we'll just call it custom menu, no spaces. And then in parentheses, we want to type in bpy.types.capital menu. So this just tells Blender that the class that we are creating is a named custom menu, and it is of the menu type. Okay, we want to follow this by a colon and then hit enter, and that will automatically indent the next line. And so we can first assign a label to it, which is the label that will actually show up in the 3D view. In this case, the label is add, and then also a unique ID name that allows us to access that menu from anywhere else inside Blender, basically. So the first one is BL_label. And we want that to equal, then in quotes, the name of our menu. So this will be custom menu, end quote. And then on a new line, it'll be BL_ID name equals, in quotes once more. And this one is generally, it can be basically anything that you want because you're going to access this based on the ID name, but it's best to name it based on where it belongs in Blender. So for example, if this were strictly a object mode menu, then you might do object.custom_menu. In this case, we're going to go ahead and just do it within the 3D view. We're not going to worry about making it context sensitive or anything like that. You wouldn't really do that at this point anyway. So let's go ahead and call it view3d.custom_menu for the 3D viewport. And that's all we need to do there. So now we just go ahead and go down another line. And just to keep the segments of our code kind of separated, I'm going to go down one more line. And now we want to create the actual draw function. So this is the function that will actually enable us to display the menu within the 3D viewport. And so this is going to be def draw, in parentheses then, it's going to be self, comma, space, context. And then in quotes and colon. So this is going to allow us to pull in the correct context, and then self basically just refers to itself. That starts to get into a little bit more Python stuff, so I'm going to just let that go for now. Again, if you want to read up more on this, I definitely recommend the Codecademy class the Codecademy class on Python is excellent. It's where I've been learning Python myself. There's a variety of other Python courses out there as well. I believe treehouse.com has one, or maybe it's Treehouse Team. There's a lot of different ones out there that are really phenomenal, that really help kind of cover all the basics. Okay, so on a new line then, we're going to actually add in our operator. So within this section underneath the draw function is where we actually add in what we display in our menu. So at this point, we need to go ahead and decide what to display. Well, for the sake of the tutorial, we really don't care. We can add in really whatever we want. In this case, I'm just going to add in a cube to allow us to easily add in a cube at any point. So to find this, we could either find it down here, or the really easy way, you'll notice that I pulled down the info bar right here. So I've just, normally this is like this, but if you just pull this down, this is part of the info panel right here, and it will actually show you kind of the last things that you've done. So for example, here on the 3D view, if I hit Shift A, add in a cube, you can then see the actual command that it has called. And so what I can do is type in the actual command here. Now, we're not going to type in the exact command, but instead what we want to do is we want to use a layout.operator. So it's going to be layout.operator, in parentheses then, and quotes, the name of the operator. So Blender, when you use a layout operator like this, and you've grabbed context here, it's going to pass on the context, in this case, basically the mode that you're working on, that you're currently in. It's going to pass that to the operator such that it understands what it is. So you don't have to type out the entire path here, but instead you can just type it in from this point in. So it's bpy.ops for operator dot either mesh, object, or any other mode. So in this case, it's going to be mesh.primitive underscore cube underscore add. We can ignore everything else. These are just the various settings, such as the location, the rotation, the layers, etc. So we can just ignore that. So we'll do a closing quote and then a ending parenthesis. And that's basically our menu. Now we still have to do a couple more things. For one, right now, even if we had the rest of our menu, it wouldn't actually work right now, because what we actually need to do is we need to set this to be self.layout.operator. So it's pulling in this, basically. But we can actually simplify this a little bit, and the common practice within Blender menus is if you just add on a new line, add in a variable. It's basically a convenience variable for layout equals self.layout. This way, you can just type in layout.operator rather than self.layout.operator every single time. Because if you had 30 different things in here, you would want it to be very, very simple and quick. So this just helps you, save 5 characters from every single line. So that's our menu. And what we now need to do is we need to basically tell Blender that we have created this menu. The way we do this is on a new line, we can hit Shift Tab to tab all the way back so that we're not indented anymore. Keep in mind that in Python, your indentions matter, absolutely. So an indentation is considered a block of code. So within my draw function here, everything that's indented below that is run within that function. If it's not indented, then that's considered the next section of code. So just be aware of that. So what we need to do is we're going to use 2 more functions. One is going to be def register, and this is what's going to tell Blender that our menu actually exists. So we want to add in this case, we're just going to use clothing parentheses, and then followed by a colon once more, and then hit enter. And this time we're going to use basically utility included within Blender that we can access. We're going to be using this on every single script that we write, basically. Anytime you're defining a custom class, you're going to be using it. So this utility, you'll just want to memorize this basically, is bpy.utils for utilities, or utils. There we go, dot register underscore class, parentheses, the name of the class, which in this case is custom menu as seen up here. And then just close that with another parentheses. Okay, so that's the register function. So this is what tells Blender that our custom menu exists and then allows us to access that custom menu via calling this or calling this. So what we then need to do though is, since this is going to be an add-on, whenever we disable the add-on, we need to tell Blender to basically remove this class, because we don't want Blender to then be populated with hundreds or thousands of different classes and custom scripts and such that we've at one point in time used, but then since removed. So the way that we do that is basically the exact opposite. We do def unregister, and then it's bpy.utils.unregister underscore class custom menu. Okay, and then we need to do one last thing, because right now the register function here is strictly used for the add-on. No, that's not totally true. Right now it's used for the add-on, but what we want to do is we want to tell Blender that if this is simply run as a standalone script, to go ahead and register it anyway, because if we don't do that, if we were to run this right now, it wouldn't actually work. So we're going to do one more thing before we can actually test our script, and that is if double underscore name double underscore equals equals space quote double underscore main double underscore quote colon, then, so if name equals main, essentially is what that's saying, register. And so register is then calling this. And I had to have this described to me a couple of different times by someone far more experienced in Python than I, but basically what this does is says, hey, if this is being run by itself, you know, it's not being run at startup or anything like that, then go ahead and run this such that you can actually access this. So if you don't have this in, this won't work to just run it from the text editor. Because what we're going to do now is we're actually going to run our menu. So first of all, let's just hit run script and make sure we don't have any errors, which we don't. So we have, so far, we think, done our job well. But what have we got? We can't see anything. We don't have a menu. We have no idea how to call this menu from the 3D view. So what we can do is we can first run another operator within our register function. So I'll just hit return. And this time, we're basically just going to put in a quick little call just to call the menu real quick, just to confirm that it's working. The way that we can do this, you can find it down here. If you type in BPY period control space for enter, or control space for autocomplete, I mean. It's then within the ops, so ops for operator, control space to complete, control space again, that shows you the next parts, and WM equals window manager, and so the window manager is what handles all of your menus and things like that, so we'll autocomplete that, and then within window manager, we can see all these different things. So you've got things like save as main file, return to original, save main, save user preferences, search, splash screen, all these different things that kind of refer to Blender's windows. And within this, if you continue to scroll up, one of the things you'll find is call menu. So we've got call underscore menu, hit enter, and then you can see the name here. Basically, it's asking for the name of the menu equals and then the name of the actual menu within quotes, followed by an in parentheses. So what we can do is, in here, we'll type bpy.ops.wm for window manager.call underscore menu, and then in parentheses, name equals quote, the name of the menu, which is custom menu, and I don't know the exact details as why, but we also need to include a .bl underscore ID name right here. And so it's basically going to do custom menu, and then it's looking for whatever the BL ID name is in order to find the menu itself. And so then we're going to end that with a closing quote, and then follow up with the closing parenthesis. So now if we hit Alt-P or click Run Script once more, we should actually get our menu. And in this case, we did not, so let's hit Alt-P. So we're not getting our menu at the moment, so let's find out why. And let's see. Maybe we don't actually need the quotes in here. There we go. So we don't need the quotes. If we just press Alt-P now, you can see we have custom menu add cube. So if we just delete this cube, hit Alt-P, click add cube, there we go. So we have a cube. So we could then populate this menu with whatever we wanted. So maybe in here, let's just say we're going to add the cube, and then why don't we duplicate the cube again? Okay, so we've got a duplicate. And so that duplicate operator can be found right here, bpy.ops.object.duplicate underscore move. So that's layout.operator object.duplicate underscore move, Alt-P, there we go, duplicate object. So if I duplicate this, you can see it's automatically duplicated the selected object, and there we go. So there's all kinds of things that we could do with this. You can add basically anything. If you happen to see the tutorial that I recently did on using the Quick Tools add-on that I wrote, which is accessible with the Q key, you can see that I've got all of these different things that I've added. So a custom subsurf, modifiers, targets, shading, etc., etc. So these are all different things that I've added, and it's basically this. It's not too much more complicated than this. This is the building block. So what we need to do at this point, number one, we don't want to keep this in the script. So what I'll do is I'm just going to comment it out. You can add a line comment just with a pound sign. So a pound sign will comment that line out. You can see it's color coded differently now. Note that these colors are set based on your theme, so your colors may look a little bit different than this depending on what theme you're using. I'm using the CG Cookie theme, which is available from the GitHub repository linked in the description of this post. So what we want to do now is we want to run this as an add-on. Well, before we can run it as an add-on, we need to give it a little bit more information. And the information that we need to give is called BL_info. So let's just take everything. We're going to push everything down a few lines and go back up. And at the very top, we're going to type in BL_info space equals space bracket. And this bracket, or curly bracket, this then is going to basically create a dictionary that then gives our add-on a name, a category, an author, etc. Now, at the very least, we need to assign a name and a category. The name just so that we can actually find it within the add-ons menu, and a category so that Blender knows where to put it. Now, I'm just going to go on a new line and then just indent this two notches. We don't actually have to indent it, but I'm going to. And so this first one is going to be name, colon, and then space, and then whatever the name I want. So in this case, it's going to be my custom menu. Okay? And this then basically says, cool, this is the key, and this is the value. So whenever we see name, the name equals my custom menu. Okay, so now we can add a comma because we want to add a new key and a new value. So we'll hit enter, and this time it's going to be category, colon, and the category in this case will be 3D view. Now these categories are set based on these. So if you add something that doesn't exist here, such as if I just say, 2D view, it's actually going to create a new category for this. So this allows you to actually create a category as you go. If you just name it the exact same thing as the previous one, then it will just work. So it'll just add it to an existing one. Okay, and so then we can go ahead and add this with a comma. And normally you would then also add in things like author, which in this case would be myself. And then you can add in the location to show where it's at in Blender, and a variety of other ones that you can also use. Now, I'm not going to worry about those for the time being. If you want to check out the other ones that you can do, you can always go to the templates, Python, and choose at the very top, there is a add-on add object. So this then is a template for adding an object, and you can see all the different options within here. So we've got warnings, descriptions, wiki URL, tracker URL, category, etc., etc. So we're not going to worry about that for the time being. Let's just go back to our custom menu, and we can go ahead and close this out. We actually don't need that last comma. So then I will close this out with a new curly bracket, and then we'll remove a couple of these lines just to make it more clean. Okay, so this then should give us our add-on. Now, before we, well, no, I'll come back to that. All right, let's go ahead and make sure we save our file. So I will save as, and in this case, I'm just going to save it within the repository. And this is going to be view 3D underscore custom menu dot py. Okay, I will save that. And now that we've saved that, we can go into our add-ons section within the user preferences, and we can click install from file. And what we want to do is we're just going to go to that recent place and click view 3D custom menu and install from file. And there we go. It's automatically installed it. It's then set the filter to go ahead and show it. And we can now check it. So we can see the location, we can enable it, and then we can use our menu or not. The reason that we can't use our menu right now is, remember that we accessed our menu while running the script via this little call right here. Well, we've disabled that, and so how do we actually access our menu? So this is where we can go in and we can add in a custom hotkey in order to call this menu. Now, you can actually add the custom hotkey via the script so that you don't actually have to do this next step. That's a little beyond the scope of this tutorial and will be a great topic for a future series. For the time being, we're going to do it in two steps. We first created the add-on, and now we're going to assign the hotkey in order to call the menu. So under the input section, let's just go down. We can go to the 3D view, and we could do it 3D view global or object mode. I'm just going to put it in object mode. At this point, since we're using simple stuff, you can really put it kind of wherever you want. And just remember that wherever you put it is going to be the areas that you can call it in. So if you put it in 3D view global, anywhere within the 3D view, you'll be able to call it. If you only put it in object mode, you'll only be able to call it when you're in object mode. So just keep that in mind. So what we want to do is you see all of these entries called call menu. So this is actually what we're going to use. So if you toggle one of these down, you can see that the command that the hotkey is set to is wm.call_menu. This should look familiar because we used it down here. So this then asks for the name. So this is basically just an easy way of assigning a hotkey in order to do this. So what we can do is we can scroll down and we're going to click add new. We'll toggle this down and this will be wm.call_menu. That'll immediately add it right here and ask for a name. So the name in this case is going to be our BL_ID name, which is view3d.custom_menu. If we hit enter, let's go ahead and just assign this to something. We'll just set this to say Shift Q. That's a hotkey that I just happen to know is not assigned right now for me. And so now if I go back to my main view, I hit Shift Q and it calls up the menu. So there you go. What you would do at this point is you would just go ahead and save your user settings. I'm not going to this point because I don't really want to have this as my default, but you would save the user settings with your hotkey, with your add-on enabled, and there you have it. You have a nice new menu that you can customize. You can do your own things with to then create a better workflow. So the last thing that I want to do just to help instill good practices is comment our code. So anytime you're doing anything, even if you're only coding for your own self, you should comment your code. A well-documented code is far easier to go back to and edit. I can even say within the short time that I've been writing scripts, there have been numerous times that I've gone back to adjust something and I've had to spend anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes just re-looking at my code to try and figure out what I did, how it worked, and what on earth I was thinking because I didn't document it. Since I didn't document it, I didn't have any way to easily understand it. So even though this is very simple, we're going to go ahead and do it. So we can document our code very easily just by using comments. So the import BPY is very self-explanatory. That's going to be the same across all Blender scripts, so we're not going to worry about that. Same with BL info. But our class for the custom menu, in this case, we're going to add a comment, and we can say this class creates a menu for global 3D view. Whatever is descriptive to you. So this is the overall class that creates it. Then this function is going to actually set the menu operators and draw functions. And yes, I know that this is pretty self-explanatory at this point, but you can imagine once you start getting more and more complex code that is less legible, these suddenly become very, very valuable. Now, the register functions, again, we don't really need to do those either because those are, again, going to be very, very consistent, and so we're good to go. But I encourage you to document your code no matter what you're doing as you go along. Basically, you can't have too much documentation. It can start getting messy if you have too much, but it's better to have too much than none at all. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, do, of course, feel free to ask in the comments. If you want to see more Python tutorials, please do let us know. I am in the midst of planning a complete citizen introduction to Python in Blender. So if that's something you're interested in, just let me know, and we'll definitely make sure that it is a priority. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.